I still infringed on their patent.
Because my land is on the east side of the road, the main road, the prevailing winds here are from the west. So it would be natural for the canola that blew off of trucks to land in the field here. In fact, one farmer told me that when he drove past my land hauling a Roundup-ready canola, his tarp had broken, and he estimated he lost enough past my 2 miles of land to seed 2,000 acres.
Well, I think one of the biggest issues in the case is where to draw the line between the people and the companies who produce and come up with this new technology. The line ended up being drawn way into the farmers' fields. And our contention was the line should clearly be drawn such that farmers have a right to continue to farm. They should be able to save and reuse their own seed. They should be able to buy seed, conventional seed, from their neighbors as they've had in the past, without having to worry about whether they're infringing somebody's patent now.
1999, when I went to seed my canola fields, I was advised by my lawyer not to use my own seed again because I now knew it was contaminated by Monsanto's genetic altered canola. And it was seed that was adapted to this region and grew quite well because it was resistant to various diseases.
Percy destroyed over 1,000 pounds of seed that he and his wife had developed over decades.
The lawsuit and my loss of my seeds was the hardest thing that could have ever happened to us.
Now here Monsanto comes along, what we worked for all these years, they just want to take it away just like that from us. I could never do that. To go into their office and take anything, I would be prosecuted. And they can just come and do anything to the farmers just like they own them or so. It really is upsetting. And I feel they've taken my rights away and my privacy. And we're not the only ones they've been doing to, as many others. Why are they prosecuting so many of these little farmers? Well, they're only maybe worth a couple of 100,000 when they're such a multinational company. Why? Is it greed, or is it they just want to control all the seeds?
Percy was not the only farmer accused by Monsanto.
In the summer of 2000, my family and I were discussing how rude we thought it was that Monsanto never sent us a letter or thanked us for cooperating with their investigation into our business. We were stunned when in late July of the year 2000, we received a letter from a law firm in New Orleans that was representing Monsanto Company, accusing us of infringing on their patent. Every accused grower in the United States that I have talked to had nearly identical stories. They come and test your crop. The farmers that have nothing to hide figure, well, they'll find that we didn't plant this crop that they say, and they come back over a year later and accuse you of this when the farmer can't go back and take crop samples and disprove them. Monsanto had told us that they had sampled all 3,850 acres of our soybean crop. The samplers would have had to have been gathering one sample continuously every 20 seconds. After examining the testimony that we gave, we realized their story didn't add up. Now they changed their story, saying they only took a handful of samples per field. Are we to assume that they were lying in their first attempt to extort money from us, or are they lying now?
Estimates are that Monsanto has sent out 9,000 letters to farmers. Most farmers choose to pay to avoid lawsuits. Even so, there are 100 active lawsuits in the United States alone. When the farmers do settle with Monsanto, they have to agree to never discuss their settlement.
We feel that we were profiled by Monsanto because of the size of our farm, and that they wanted to try to make an example out of us to scare other farmers into never saving their own seed, to be too scared to save their own seed.
Eventually, my case went to court after 2.5 years, and Monsanto dragged me through those courts in pretrial. They did everything to break me and basically took all of our retirement funds because just my lawyer fees alone up to date have been around $200,000.
One of the sons said, Mom and Dad, I hope it won't get you down because they're trying to destroy you. But I hope you're strong and you just get through it all. He says, that's the only way changes will be made in our country with these big companies.
Monsanto ready to wage war. Schmeizer's case opened the door for Monsanto to pursue other patent breaches. A lot of people have asked me why I didn't just settle. I probably could have settled for maybe a slap on the wrist or maybe a few $1,000s fine. But what I did was talk it over with my wife and said, look, they destroyed our seed, everything we've worked for in the last 50 years, and if I sign this, that I grew genetic altered canola without a license when we were doing our own thing, minding our own business, I couldn't live with myself. And I feel that it was taking my fundamental rights away from me. My grandparents left a system like that way back, turn of the century, to get away from control in a feudal type system. Are we going to want to go back to that? And we said no. In a feudal type system, are we going to want to go back to that? And we said no. We'll fight it and stand up for what we believe in.
And what did the judge rule after 2.5 weeks of trial? He said it didn't matter how Monsanto's genetic altered canola got into my field. And then he went on and specified. He said whether it cross-pollinated or if it blew in by the wind, by birds, bees, animals, or falling off a farmer's truck, a combine, and so on, it didn't matter. The fact that there was some plants there, I violated Monsanto's patent, even though I didn't want it in my field. Number 2, which is the most important one, I think, he ruled any farmer that has a regular conventional plant, it doesn't matter what kind of plant, if it's a tree, if it's a seed, and it gets cross-pollinated with Monsanto's gene against your wishes and destroys your property, my plant becomes Monsanto's property. Now stop and think what that means to farmers all over the world, farmers, gardeners, anything to do with a life-giving form. The third issue he ruled, the fact that I never used Monsanto's patent, which means I never used Monsanto's Roundup Ready herbicide or glyphosate on my crop, he ruled that's immaterial. He said the fact was that there were some plants there. So that shows you the power of patent law over farmers' rights.
If you go and look at a canola field that's 1/2 GMO, 1/2 regular canola, you will not be able to tell the difference between the two. They grow the same, they act the same. The only way you'll be able to discover it's there is if you go spray Roundup. Well, what you killed is your own, and what survived belongs to Monsanto now as a result of this case.
In the last 2 months, I probably had 100 phone calls, minimum, about people finding canola in their fields that never ever had it before. And I think it would be safe to say that it would be very difficult to find one field in Western Canada that would not now be contaminated to some degree with Monsanto's GMO canola.
There's an old sort of ethic that emerged in agriculture communities, and I grew up with that ethic. And the basic ethic was that if I decided to bring an agricultural enterprise into my neighborhood, that was potentially damaging to my neighbors. For example, if I decide to raise cattle, and those cattle are potentially very damaging to my neighbor's crops, it's my responsibility to fence the cattle in. It's not my neighbor's responsibility to fence them out to prevent damage to his crops. The way that the system is functioning now, it's my responsibility to fence that technology out from my crops. And of course, there's no way that you can build a fence high enough to prevent that. We know that now.
All species have developed elaborate mechanisms over millions of years to protect their cells from invasion from foreign DNA. Genetic engineers have to overcome the integrity of the species barrier to insert a new genetic trait into a plant or animal. When scientists began genetic engineering 30 years ago, they believed that one gene expressed one trait, that transgenic DNA would be stable even when forced to cross species barriers.
A new technique of molecular biology appears to have allowed us to outdo the standard events of evolution.
In 1975, a conference of pioneers in genetic engineering was held to discuss the issues of safety and ethics of the newly discovered transgenic research. Some biologists argued for a moratorium on research until the safety of the technology could be established.
It is not known what sort of risk this is going to create because we have no tests.
The conference delegates voted against the moratorium, but did pledge to keep all recombinant DNA and genetically engineered organisms contained safely within laboratories. Currently, both agriculture and medical biotechnology use genetic engineering. Medical biotechnology has created many life-saving products. These pharmaceuticals are made under controlled conditions in secure labs. Genetically modified plants, unlike drugs, reproduce, and once released into the environment, cannot be controlled.
Using biotechnology to produce food is not new. For nearly 6,000 years, people have used yeast, a living organism, to make bread rise. And we've used biotech for almost as long